Welcome back to the History Class 10, Chapter number 3, Nationalism in India. Let us continue with the second part of this chapter, that the different strands within the movement. The non-cooperation Khilafat movement began in January 1921, and the various social groups participated in this movement, each with its own specific aspirations. All of them responded to the call of Swaraj, but the term meant different things to different people. Here we will see the four different specific aspirations: the movement in the towns, the rebellion in the countryside. In the countryside, we will study about the peasants' rebel in Awadh as well as the tribal peasants' rebellion in Andhra Pradesh. And then we will move to the next topic, that is Swaraj in plantation. So let us explain the each concept one by one. The movement in the towns. The movement started with the middle class participation in the cities. Thousands of students left government controlled schools and colleges. Headmasters and teachers resigned, and lawyers gave up their legal practices. The council elections were boycotted in most of the provinces except in Madras. Reason? Because in Madras there was a Justice Party, the party of the non-Brahmins, and they felt that entering the council was one way of gaining some power, something that usually only the Brahmins used to assess. So here the non-Brahmins people, they thought that they will get the chance to participate in the council elections, so they did not participate in the non-cooperation movement. There were various effects of the non-cooperation. The economic from front were more dramatic. Foreign goods were boycotted, liquor shops were picked up, and the foreign cloth burned in the huge bonfires. The import of the foreign cloth, it halved between 1921 to 1922, and its value dropping from rupees 102 crore to rupees 57 crore. In many places, merchants and traders, they refused to trade in foreign goods or finance foreign trade. As the boycott movement spread and people began discarding imported cloths and wearing only Indian ones, production of the Indian textile mills and handlooms went up. But there were many reasons for the slowdown of the movement. As till now we saw that the movement was going very in a mass way, but it had many demerits also. The movement in the cities gradually slowed down for the variety of reasons. Those reasons were because the khadi cloths was more expensive and every person was not able to purchase it, and the mill cloth of the foreign country, that was much cheaper. It was affordable by the common people. Secondly, the boycott of the British institutions posed a problem. For the movement to be successful, alternative Indian institutions had to be set up so that they could be used in place of British ones. But there were no alternative Indian institutions. So what happened? These were very slow to come up. So the students and teachers, those who have left over their jobs, they began trickling back to the government schools, and lawyers joined back work in government courts. Let's move to the next topic, that is the rebellion in the countryside. Rebellion in the countryside we will study in two parts: peasants' rebellion in Awadh as well as the tribal rebellion in South India, that is Andhra Pradesh. Peasants' rebellion started in Awadh. In Awadh, peasants were led by Baba Ramchandra. The movement here was against the talukdars. Talukdars were the landlords. And these landlords, they demanded for the high rents and variety of other taxes. Here the seizures means the taxes. Peasants had to do begar and work at landlords' farms without any payment. Begar means they were supposed to work at the very low price, low wages, or without wages. And the tenants had no security of tenure also. Tenure here, that is the work was, their job was not at all secure. They don't have any fixed time for their work. Anytime they were supposed to be removed from their work also. So the peasants demanded three important things. Children, this question could be asked in 3 markers. So the peasants demanded the three things, that is, those three things were reduction of revenue, abolition of begar, and social boycott of oppressive landlords. In that sequence, in October 1920, Audh Kisan Sabha was set up. And this Audh Kisan Sabha was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru and Baba Ramchandra as well as few others. Within a month, over 300 branches had been set up in the villages around the region. And so, when the non-cooperation movement began, the effort of the Congress was to integrate the Awadh peasant struggle into the wider struggle. The peasant movement, however, developed in forms that the Congress leadership were unhappy with them. Because the movement spread in 1921, it became violent. How? The houses of the talukdars and merchants were attacked, bazaars were looted, and the grain hoards were taken over. In many places, local leaders told peasants that Gandhiji had declared that no taxes were to be paid and land was to be redistributed among the poor. Thus, the name of Mahatma was being invoked to sanction all actions and aspiration, which was not at all liked by the Congress members. The next movement started among the tribals. This you can see the picture of the Awadh peasant struggle in the non-cooperation movement. Next movement started among the tribal peasants in Andhra Pradesh. Tribal peasants interpreted the message of Mahatma Gandhi and the idea of Swaraj in their own way. In the Gudem Hills of Andhra Pradesh, a militant guerrilla movement spread in the early 1920s. Not a form of struggle that the Congress could approve. Here, the way was very different. Here, as in the other forest regions, the colonial government had closed large forest areas and they prevented people from entering the forest to graze their cattle or to collect fuel wood and fruits. And this restriction enraged the hill people. Not only were their livelihoods affected, but they felt that their traditional rights were being denied. When the government began forcing them to contribute begar for road building, the hill people revolted. The person who came to lead them was an interesting figure named as Alluri Sitaram Raju, and he claimed that he had a variety of special powers. He could make correct astrological predictions and heal people, and even he could survive the bullet shots. The rebels proclaimed that he was an incarnation of God. Raju talked of the greatness of Mahatma Gandhi and he said that the non-cooperation movement has inspired him a lot, and he persuaded people to wear khadi and give up drinking. But on the other hand, he asserted that India could be liberated only by the use of force, not non-violence. The Goodem rebels attacked police stations, attempted to kill British officials, and carried on the guerrilla warfare for achieving Swaraj. But finally, Raju was captured and executed in 1924. Over time, he became the folk hero of the tribals. Then came Swaraj in plantation. Workers too had their own understanding of Mahatma Gandhi and the notion of Swaraj. For plantation workers in Assam, freedom meant the right to move freely in and out of the confined space in which they were enclosed, and it meant retaining a link with the village from which they had come, because they were not supposed to return back to their villages also, and they were not permitted to meet their family members. Under the Inland Immigration Act, which was passed in 1859, plantation workers were not permitted to leave the tea gardens without permission, and in fact, they were rarely given such permission. When they heard of the non-cooperation movement, thousands of workers defied the authorities, left the plantation, and headed home. They believed that the Gandhi Raj was coming and everyone would be given land in their own villages. However, they never reached their destinations. On the way by the railway and steamer strikes, they were caught by the police and brutally beaten up. As the non-cooperation movement, people were taking out the meaning in their own way, and due to their individual or the personal independences, ultimately the movement started becoming violent. In the meantime, one more important incident occurred on 5th February 1922 that was named as an Chauri Chaura incident. In 1922, the town named Chauri Chaura near Gorakhpur, Uttar Pradesh, was the site of this incident. Here, a group of protesters clashed with police, and as a result, policemen opened fire on the protesters. Provoked by this shooting incident, the demonstrators burnt down the police station, in which the 22 policemen were burned alive. Due to violence, Mahatma Gandhi decided to call off the non-cooperation movement. Then he took the step towards the civil disobedience. But for that, what were the circumstances? In February 1922, Mahatma Gandhi decided to withdraw the non-cooperation movement. He felt the movement was running violent in many places, and satyagrahis needed to be properly trained before they would be ready for the mass struggle. Within the Congress, some leaders were by now tired of the mass struggle and wanted to participate in the elections to the provincial councils that had been set up by the Government of India Act 1919. And they felt that it was important to oppose British policies within the council, argue for the reform, and also demonstrate that these councils were not truly democratic. Many leaders such as C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru, they formed the Swaraj Party within the Congress to urge for a return to council policies. But the younger leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose pressed for more radical mass agitation and for full independence. In such a situation of internal debate and dissension, two factors again shaped Indian politics. The first was the effect of the worldwide economic depression. Here, the agricultural prices began to fall from 1926 and collapsed after 1930. Even though the export declined and the peasants found it difficult to sell their harvest and pay their revenue. Beside that, the second factor, the new Tory government in Britain constituted a statutory commission under the Sir John Simon. It was constituted by the Tory government of Britain to look into the demands of the nationalists and suggest changes in the constitutional structure of India. This commission arrived in India in 1928, named as Simon Commission. It was led by Sir John Simon. The Congress protested against this commission because there was one very genuine problem. The problem was that the commission did not have a single Indian member, and they were all British. In the commission, there were all British members. This commission was greeted with the slogan, "Go back, Simon."